Hi, welcome to the Hypermobility.
I do.
Cut. Sheep. Hi, welcome to the Hacking Hypermobility podcast.
I'm Luna,
I'm Shelly.
and we're two bendy mamas.
Hacking Hypermobility.
This is the one with the crossover.
You're in a different room.
I am on a little vacation. I needed it. Been in autistic burnout, and I have a friend that bought my plane ticket to the beach, so I'm at the beach.
Really?
Yeah.
Who would do something
You ever
like
have a best friend who's like just kismet that you met, and then you want to see each other as much as you can, but you can't because it's a long distance relationship. So there's this person in my life that I found out like I'm actually literally related to, even though they're like just a friend. And my podcast partner.
Hey.
That was so lame. Shelly and I are in the same place. I can't believe we did this shit. We're stupid.
No, believe that. We're awesome.
We're awesome. We're the best. I'm not gonna believe that though. We're gonna leave that. Because last season one, the inaugural season, we ended with us talking about like neurodivergence and masking it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So we're gonna leave that.
We're done with that. We're done with this. Sometime. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sad. We're recording in here, but that awesome swing was out there.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool. No, I'll have plenty of time to sit on it.
Yeah. So yeah, we're at the beach. We decided to have a hacking hypermobility summit, is what we
Yeah.
called it.
The inaugural, if you will.
Luna has not prepped anything. We're winging it again. The burnout's burning.
It's real.
Yeah. I promise.
That's kind of your appeal. Like we're real people.
Yeah, I'm a Pisces, but I'm also a Virgo moon. So like I appear like I have it together, but let's be real. My head is up in the clouds and in the moon. Yes.
Yeah.
And you're a fucking delight.
I'm a fucking
I
delight.
don't know if you can see her shirt, but
Yeah.
she's a fucking delight.
We're about to make the angle a little bit better. Why don't we?
I did hit record this time. We
Is
are
it- is it
recording. Yeah.
recording?
Okay. So we took too long of a break and we forgot what we were doing.
It's been a long day.
And we had a really long day of fun at the beach. So here's your special episode. Watch this.
Yeah, listen to this special episode and
Yeah.
see you on the other side.
Yeah. The following interview was recorded on March 7th, 2023, and is hosted by Dr. Rebecca Landa of the Kennedy Krieger Center for Autism and Related Disorders. The title is The Autism Experience Through the Eyes of a Family. It was originally released on April 6th, 2023. Enjoy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our program today. I'm Dr. Rebecca Landa, the founder and executive director of the Center for Autism and Related Disorders at Kennedy Krieger Institute, where I'm also vice president. April is Autism Acceptance Month, and 1 in 44 children in the United States has an autism diagnosis. So it's important for everyone to familiarize themselves with autism. We here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders at Kennedy Krieger Institute honor Autism Acceptance Month by offering an informative mini-series. Every Thursday at noon during April, we will broadcast one of our 4 mini-series sessions. The one you're viewing right now is the first in the series. Today, we're going to address topics involving what is autism? How does it manifest differently in different people? We'll talk a little bit about some of the challenges and what helps. Our other sessions will focus on severe autism, a form of autism that is associated with intellectual impairment, severe symptoms, and other health complications that require major supports to be in place for facilitating functioning in daily life. That session will be hosted by two experts from our center, Dr. Rajneesh Mahajan, a child and adolescent psychiatrist, and Dr. Kate McCalla, a clinical psychologist, along with a family with lived experience in this area. Another one of our webinars will focus on how to talk with your autistic family member's doctor. This session will be hosted by Dr. Stephanie Morris, a neurologist and our center's medical director. She'll be joined by a parent of an autistic young man, Ms. Julie Waldron, also a pediatrician, Dr. Jonathan Clemens from Mercy Family Care Physicians, and Dr. Sarah Mixter, an internist who trained in pediatrics and also takes care of adults. And she's with the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. And we also will have a session on optimizing autistic children's educational experience. This webinar will be hosted by Dr. Ebony Holliday, a school psychologist at our center. And her guests will include a teacher, that is Elise Marcel, who's a special educator at Kennedy Krieger Institute, and also two parents, Ms. Debbie Page and Dr. Abila Tazanou. Now, also, you can find a link to these various webinars at card.kennedykrieger.org. So let's get started on today's session. People often ask, what is autism? And the answer is a bit complicated because autism looks different in each person with the condition. In a nutshell, it involves disruption in development of social knowledge and skills, as well as repetitive patterns of behavior, often difficulties with sensory processing. We have the Stanley family with us today, three of whom have an autism diagnosis, and they'll tell you about their experiences with autism. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guests for today's program. I welcome Shelley and her husband, Alec, their son, Rob, and their daughter, Carolyn. And I thank you all for taking time out of your busy lives to do this today. And before we get started, I want to familiarize the audience with some terminology. First, I want to introduce you to the term neurodiversity. The term neurodiverse is used to refer to, at a population level, to people because we're all different in our neurobiology and the way that we process information and express ourselves. There's another specific term, an important term, called neurodivergent. And neurodivergent is a label that's used when someone has a neurotype that is diagnosed that has special needs extra support. And that includes autism, ADHD, learning disabilities, dysgraphia. Any of those things can fit under the neurodivergent umbrella. And I'd like to start off with Shelley first. And Shelley was diagnosed with autism and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, recently. And one of the things that Shelley let me know before this program started was that she does not have any intellectual difficulties. And so a lot of times people who experience autism, who, for lack of a better word, don't have any dysmorphology or atypical physical features, and whose intellect is within the normal range or above, sometimes people think, well, gosh, you can't possibly have autism. And so, Shelley, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your experience with autism, and maybe we could start with how it's affected your social knowledge and experiences.
Well, thank you for including us in this important conversation. The way it has affected me, now that I know what it was, is that I tended to over communicate all of the time because I constantly felt misunderstood, or that the way that I was saying something wasn't the right way, for lack of a better word. After I would have a social interaction, I would often ruminate on that later. I would replay the conversation over and over again in my head. What could I have said different? Maybe if I had said this, maybe if I had done it this way, because I constantly feel like I'm over explaining myself. And this would lead me to frustration. If I couldn't say something the way I wanted to, I would sometimes cry because at the time, I did not understand that I was actually unable to access that information in my brain. So it would turn me to tears. which would cause frustration with whoever I was interacting with. And as their frustration would grow, my frustration would grow. And either an argument would ensue, or I would, if it was like my friends, or if I was with an adult or parental type figure of authority, I would usually get sent away to my room.
What I'm catching from this is that this social communication processing challenge that autism, created for you, it kind of got you a little out of sync in your communication with other people.
Oh, for sure. I rarely am able to just answer a one-word question with just one word, because in the past, if I was ever questioned on that, then I felt like I immediately had to explain myself. And so to prevent having to explain myself later, I tend to explain myself upfront, which also causes problems because then I'm just giving you too much information and you're like, oh my gosh, like, stop. So I also like learning everything about everything. So that is frustrating. I ask a lot of questions that people find intrusive, or you're only involved in this part. Why do you need to know about what's happening over here? And until I fully understood that I really do need all of that information to actually make sense of what's happening around me. Now that I know that, it explains a lot. I can understand myself better. I also got told that I was too blunt, don't say it like that. What's wrong? Why are you mad at me? And I'm like, did I say I was mad at you? No, but your face is like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just how my face is. So I had a lot of problems with that. And so I taught myself at a young age, oh, let me pitch my voice up. I'm going to smile at you. I'm going to practice staring right here at your forehead because I feel weird looking at you. And as I got older, I actually taught myself to knit recently so that I could do something while I was interacting with someone, but it was okay if I didn't look at them because I didn't want to look at them.
That's such a good example. I mean, I think the examples that you're giving are so clear about how autism affects the social communication and yours and the other person's ability to sync, make appropriate inferences about each other. People are making interpretations that you're not even experiencing and kind of assigning that to you. But one of the other things that you're describing is masking or hiding your symptoms and finding really socially acceptable ways of presenting yourself, and even the knitting. And I think that's one of the things that leads to the sex differences, right? So for a female who might have some strong, intense interests and foci, choosing something like knitting, which is a totally acceptable thing for women in our society, doesn't look like an atypical characteristic.
Right. And what is also remarkable about the knitting is not only did I teach myself, I got so into it. I taught myself how to knit in January of 2020. And by October of 2020, I had knitted I made a sweater that was kind of like, people were like, oh, that's beautiful. When did you do that? I was like, I taught myself how to knit last year.
Yeah.
And they were like,
It's pretty impressive, Shelley.
And to me, I was like, what? It's just a sweater,
Yeah.
The other thing I really struggled with is I didn't understand why it was okay for my peers who were males or boys could do certain things or say certain things or act a certain way. But if I did the same exact thing using the same exact words, I got called unpleasant names. I got told I was out of my lane. I got told I should stay where I should go. Like, no, you don't have any, what do you know about XYZ topic? I faced a lot of this when I drove buses in college, which sounds crazy, but I loved that job because it was a route and a routine and I had to be at places on times. And so I didn't know at the time what I loved so much about that job
But this is another good example of how autism, this inclination with autism to have patterns or consistencies or routines and that predictability. And when things don't conform with that, there's sometimes discomfort. And in children, sometimes it can be related to behavioral dysregulation or anxiety.
Oh, I was just going to say, because I never knew how the sensory situation would be necessarily, and before I got comfortable with myself and asking what the situation was going to be, I was a little hyper vigilant on being prepared for almost any situation. So I became like the mother hen of the group, because I kind of knew that if something was off and it was going to make me go off, then that was going to like snowball effect into my friends, the friends that I did have. And I didn't want that to happen. So I became like the mother hen, hyper vigilant. Shelly handles everything, which was great while I could do it until I couldn't do it anymore. And now I I forced myself to be that persona for so long, when I finally like, oh, this has been the cause of all of my problems all of these years. And as I shed that, I actually lost skills. I struggle to make dinner now.
Could we talk a little bit about your sensory processing challenges?
Um, Bright lighting bothers me, unexpected sounds. Um, I really like soft. I have one of my soft blankets here with me today. I'm not, sometimes I just sit and like pet a soft blanket. Um, I very much feel what is ever is going on in the environment. So if the environment is good, that's a sensory that I like, I generally feel good too. Conversely, I don't do well in situations where there's conflict or people begin arguing with each other. When there's a tense, and if I am aware, once I become aware of it, I immediately go into how can I fix this or what can I do to fix it, which becomes problematic because sometimes people don't want me involved. But I feel like I've become involved. So now I have to fix it, because otherwise my brain is going to like, I feel like I might cause problems within the group.
Just
Yeah.
to give a little clarity to our audience who's trying to
Yeah.
understand what is
Yeah.
autism,
Yes.
thinking about the emotion experience that you have when people are in conflict, do you think that's related to sensory processing or emotion processing? Where do you think that's coming from?
I think it's a little bit of both, but my emotional regulation is very disordered. Oftentimes I would not fully understand or be able to fully understand what happened in the situation until hours or sometimes days after the fact. Fully understanding the consequences of even words I've said, where I thought I was being clear about a particular statement or idea or even a decision that he and I make together.
Right.
We've been married almost 22 years, and the diagnosis has been huge in helping us really, really communicate with each other, because now we really get it. But before, I just blamed myself for a lot of that. I internalized it, and the emotional regulate. Because I never really learned how to properly process my negative emotions, I just kind of always applied them to myself. Anytime there was any type of conflict around, and because I didn't know how to process it, I usually would either shut down or just get defensive, because it just was an anxiety causing situation.
Thank you for explaining all that. And I'll just sort of summarize it a little bit for the audience, just to say that Shelly has given some really excellent examples of how autism in some ways can seem so subtle, but the experience within for the person who is trying to process the very dynamic, complex social information and emotional information around them. I mean, human beings come with a lot of emotions and we affect other people a lot. When we're with someone with autism, that emotion processing and it can affect their own emotion regulation in ways that Shelly's explaining here. Shelly, did you have another thought you wanted to add before I move to Rob?
Yeah, the only one more thing I wanted to add was because, and goes back to what you said at the beginning with the absence of intellectual disability. My intellectual capabilities are actually quite high, which causes its own problems because I had that gap in my expressive and receptive language, but people also knew I was super smart. It was very difficult, I would say almost impossible until recently, for me to actually be able to get some sense of, I don't want to say grace, but almost like to be allowed to not be good at something, right? Um, that was, I just want to say that because I had the intellectual gifts, I often felt that I wasn't allowed to struggle in any area.
Thank you so much, Shelley, for explaining how much people with autism around us in the grocery store, on the airplane, or walking through the park that we might have an encounter with who isn't, as I said in the beginning, not looking different from anyone else. It may be processing information totally differently than us. And you've just busted one of the big myths of autism, and that is that somebody with normal or above IQ can't be autistic, right? And then I just wanted to make the point, Rob, I'm moving to you next, but is that autism is a heterogeneous condition. So we have people who are non-speaking all the way to people who have no language problems whatsoever, and all the way from significant social experiences where they're socially isolated to people who are socially gregarious. So there's just all this range. So Rob, welcome and thank you for taking time. Rob's on his break from college. Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I am obviously, as Dr. Landa just said, I am in college. I attend Millersville University of Pennsylvania. I am a sophomore since I took a gap year before I was a freshman, and I study meteorology at Millersville University. And obviously, right now I'm on break, so that's kind of the introduction part.
Thank you so much. Now, Rob, I understand that you received an autism spectrum diagnosis when you were 5, and then later also got another diagnosis of ADHD, which is not uncommon for that to happen. And there's other co-occurring things that can happen too in autism, like anxiety and things like that. I'm not saying that you have that, but most individuals who experience autism have some anxiety. But Rob, can you tell us what is your experience with autism?
Well, I mean, given the fact that I was diagnosed with it before I even entered grade school, it was there were a lot of things that had happened because like obviously I felt because I was autistic and I didn't know that like if anyone else was, I kind of felt like alone that I couldn't exactly socialize properly with my other classmates. So like obviously I was kind of quiet around people I didn't know, and I would kind of enter a conversation I wasn't really involved in, and I would say random stuff, and that would actually cause me to like other students to make fun of me for it. That saying like that wasn't related to what we were saying, like go away. And it would that did hurt. And obviously like eye contact was also very difficult. I mean, it's hard to even look at the camera too right now. But a lot of people like are now noticing that I'm not good at making eye contact. So I kind of do what my mom would do, like, look at people's foreheads. And then also like I would stop in the middle of a conversation and just leave someone. I would just leave someone in the middle of a conversation and not even say anything. I would just walk away. or or when the conversation was supposed to be over, I would linger around and keep continuing it, not knowing that it had ended. So there's a bit of a deficit in me being able to start a conversation and being able to keep it continuing. And yeah, that's sort of that's been a problem for a long time, actually. Um, and often my tone of voice won't match what I say. I'm a very monotone speaker. Like, I don't really sound excited when I am excited, but that's just how it is. And I don't really try to control it because like I let people know when like I'm close with them. I don't really tell people that I am autistic unless I'm like really good friends with them because obviously being made fun of is not something I want to have to put up with. Um, and there actually are people I go to school with who are also autistic and have the same like struggles as me. Like I just wasn't confident enough to let people know about it until actually a few years ago. So
Rob, this is, an extremely candid sharing that you're giving us and helping people to understand how the inner life experience of somebody who's autistic is. And you're mentioning being with other people. Do you, if you were with people who fully accepted you for who you are and didn't judge it if you said something off topic or if you left in the middle of a conversation, uh, would you want to be with people? Do you want to be with people like that?
yeah, so like
Yeah.
people who accept me for who I am, there are people who do accept that. Like honestly, at first they were like, okay, it's kind of weird that he's going off topic, but it eventually became like they eventually just accepted it that I do that sometimes, even though I never really like fully explained why. But I'm just really glad that I'm still friends with those people. And honestly, I also accepted it too. It's just something that's gonna happen. I'm not like obviously I try to avoid doing it as much as possible because like I genuinely want to be able to talk to people without me bringing up something I'm extremely interested in that no one else would even know a clue about.
Exactly. And thank you so much for sharing that. And I think you're another really perfect example of how somebody with autism who has an interest in something that they really passionately want to pursue. And look at you, you're pursuing it for your college major and you're loving it.
Yep.
Congratulations. And I really appreciate you sharing too about the fact that you want friends. And many autistic friends of mine often tell me that they feel like a stereotype of autism is that autistic people don't want friends and they want to be alone. And that just like anybody in the world, we have people who are introverts and extroverts, that just because you do or don't have autism doesn't take you off that temperament scale. So, we have to accept that there's going to be, neurodiversity within the autism community itself.
Definitely. It's kind of funny because I do in fact like I do obviously have friends that I spend time with, but there comes a point where I just need to recharge. And there are some people I know that never really understood that because they're like, oh, if you're friends with me, like, why won't you hang out with me every chance you get? Because I don't have the capacity to deal with it 24/7.
Rob, you just hit on one of the things that I was hoping to get to soon. And thank you for bringing it up right now. What helps? What helps? Shelley mentioned having a hobby that excuses her from some of the social requirements, like looking at someone in the eye. And also that's very soothing, even especially alpaca yarn, right, Shelley? That's so soft. I'm also a knitter, but also for you, Rob, needing those breaks. And knowing that you need those breaks and honoring those. And then also you said something that helps you is accepting who you are.
Yeah.
So important.
Right.
Carolyn, I'm going to hop over to you, please. And could you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm Carolyn. I'm a junior at Annapolis High School. I am in the Apex Arts program for Anne Arundel County. So I basically go to school to do art for fun, for like extra, all that stuff. And like I have art behind my mom and like all over my walls. So like, even though that stuff back there is pictures, there's like art all over here. And so all that stuff. Yeah, I got evaluated in January. Yeah, January. And once mom got diagnosed, we were like, yeah, she definitely we were like, now we just need it on paper because I haven't had any like 504 meetings with like anything in school related. Like I didn't have any extra help. And so we're trying to get me that. I was in occupational therapy from when I was 18 months because I was tactile defensive, sensory avoidant, and I had like really bad like motor skills with my hands. Yeah, until I was like 8. And yeah, and I have an above average GPA, but like I'm really bad at test taking, so I have lower test scores than like other students. But yeah, and so yeah, that's me.
Well, that's a beautiful story. And well, you're really gifted. I'm enjoying the art that I can see behind your parents. So beautiful. Can you tell us a little bit about, any other aspects of social processing that you experience with autism?
I had a really tough time with that as a little youngin in elementary school and middle school, just because I was so like when I got interested in stuff, I really got interested. So when I started like doing art in elementary school and like kindergarten, I would always be at the art table for choice time. I would always be talking about like what I wanted to draw. I would always be drawing on like my paper and stuff. And it caused a little bit of conflict between me and other students because they'd be like, oh, you're hogging the choice table, blah, blah, blah. You're doing this. And I'm like, you can sit next to me. Like, I haven't like told you that I don't want you around. And like, and I was known as the art kid because that's all I really did. And that's all I really liked to talk about. So I didn't really connect with other students because I was not interested in like, not to be like, I'm not like other girls, but I really wasn't super interested in like Barbie and all that stuff. I was interested in like Monster High. I loved dinosaurs. I loved dinosaurs when I was younger. I love like Littlest Pet Shops and like My Little Pony and stuff. And so like I kept those interests until like middle school where I started like dissolving, and then I got into like until I got into like adult fantasy books and like romance books and stuff like that. So like once I got like past all that, I liked childish shows for my age. Like I really liked Dora up until like 5th grade, and people were like, oh, I stopped watching Dora when I was like 8. And then I was like over here 11 being like, what's wrong with Dora, bro? I like Dora. Even though Swiper scared me a little bit as a child, but that's something else. I know that I have a lot of like echolalia stuff like that. So when people would talk to me and say something, I would repeat it back to them and they would think I was mocking them. And I was just like, no, I'm just saying it. I'm just saying it back for like vocal stimming. on top of like the me only being interested in certain things and not being able to connect with other peers, when I did get the chance to connect with peers, I had issues with being mistreated because I had problems telling like people's intentions with me. So like I would have specifically problems with in elementary school. Like I had friends who, now that I'm older, I'm like, they did not treat me very well. I didn't realize how much that like it caused me to internalize a lot of stuff. So I ended up like masking from a pretty young age because I was just like, oh, I can't say this, I can't say that, I can't do this, I can't do that. So I was pretty much playing it by ear my entire childhood. And so then when I got to middle school, that's when like my anxiety got really bad. So because like I would be like, I'd get like stomach aches and like when I like my heart was beating and my heart would beat really fast. My heart was like running at like 25 million miles an hour all the time in middle school, and that is not good. And so I didn't realize that until now. So now I'm like, I had really, really bad anxiety in middle school because of how judged I was in elementary school. I did not want that to be my reality for middle school. Part of me like just kind of like shut off for a little bit. I went to like until because I was in Apex Arts for middle school too, until I was in art class, and then I could like and I could decompress and like be in my happy place. And so like it was just very stressful being with kids who were really like who were just unpleasant to be around. And then they're like, oh, you're good at math. Do you have answers? Can you give me this? And I'm like, no. People were like, she's mean. And I'm like, I'm not mean. I'm just being forward with you. Like people did not like that I was, as mom said, like how she was told she was too blunt. And I became known for being very blunt and being very honest. There's not much space to lie in here, and I don't really like lying. So that's like most of it.
Carolyn, thank you so much. And you revealed so many things about how difficult it is with reading other people's minds and being able to anticipate what they're thinking, and then how much people judge other people who aren't behaving exactly like them or meeting their expectations, and then bullying them. Both of you, Rob and Carolyn, have experienced this bullying in many ways. So has Shelley. And this causes a lot of internal suffering, and it affects the whole dynamic of relationship building. And so I'd like to transition over to you, Alec, for a minute and ask you for your advice for other people about how can people who are either family or friends or coworkers of someone with autism help, make life a higher quality experience and also create more acceptance?
Well, the first thing I'd say is that what's really helped us out is communicating what our needs are or what's bothering us, and creating like a safe environment to express yourself, right? Because it just happened yesterday. I was talking to Carolyn, and we were talking about how I was asking her to do something, and she's like, I'd rather you ask me this way than that way because I'm going to take it this way rather than that way. Or I just have to get used to over explaining sometimes, right? Is that, my family's going to talk to me a certain way, and I'm going to have to understand that and, get used to it. And we all have to, learn how to live with each other, and, my own idiosyncrasies that annoy them. So I think it's just a combination of communication and patience, and that, everyone is different and everyone works differently and everyone has their own, personal special qualities. So, at work, I work with different types of people. Probably some are artistic and some are not. And they're better at different things. Just finding out what is someone better at than another person is better at, and just working to their strengths.
I'm going to also add to that. For me, before I knew I was autistic, I just thought I was rude sometimes. And maybe it is perceived as rudeness. I do not feel like I am being rude to you if you ask me a question and if I don't like engage with you and I just say yes. in the past, if I had answered just kind of quickly with like a yes, then he would be like, are you sure? What do you know? And so then
Right.
that would start a cycle of, yes, I'm sure that's what I said. Oh, but your face was this and this. That's not, and then there's a fight, right? Or I don't necessarily know how to exactly, explicitly, clearly, with the way his brain works, explain something. And so sometimes if he genuinely wants to help me, and I would accept the help, but I don't know how to articulate it.
Right.
And so then he would just get frustrated because I couldn't articulate it. But then I also would get mad because and now that we know that, now he can just kind of look at me and we just do this little thing and I'm like, and he's like,
Right.
oh.
Right. Yeah. A lot of times when, my family or even people at work appears to me like they're having problems doing something or figuring something out, instead of coming in trying to help them, I'll say, do you want help? And a lot of times, my family will figure it out on their own, and then they'll just take their time to do it. And and sometimes they'll get to the point where, okay, now I'm going to go ask for help. But just have to let them be themselves.
It's opening the door to let people tell us about their own preferences, rather than us making those inferences and expectations.
Yep.
Rob
Mhm.
and Carolyn, what helps you? What can your classmates, your teachers, what can people do to make your quality of life and experience more pleasant?
For me specifically, I just ask for patience from people. And because I also have like really, really bad sensory issues, I ask that like I don't like yelling. So I'm just kind of like, y'all are up here. You need to be like way down here. And I also am very touch adverse to some things. So I'm just kind of like, maybe get clothes for me that feel like this, not this, because I hate velvet. It's so bad. I hate velvet. I also just kind of like tell people how I feel. And so because I'm like, hey, I'm feeling like this, blah, 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 blah. They're able to like do that with me. And then that can help me understand them as well as them understanding me. And people just being like, what can I do to help? Like just kind of asking me, what can I do to help rather than being like, I'm going to try doing this for you if I did not specifically ask for it. Because I find when like people hug me suddenly, I'm just like, don't touch me. But when it's easier when I'm like, I want to initiate physical touch. I am better with reacting to certain things when I am the one who's like, I want this. I'm gonna initiate this with you if I'm feeling blah blah blah. You can do this for me when I'm feeling bad. It's just kind of like making sure that you and the other person are on the same page, because I don't like leaving people in the dark about how I'm feeling, especially if I need help. So it's just kind of like being open and just being like, if you don't accept me, that is your problem. I am going to do this to help me and help you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Rob, are you getting ready to share from your perspective? I'd love to hear what you're thinking.
I was gonna say, when people like when my friends like were to offer me help or something, I ma- I usually try to make it clear that I only want the help if I ask for it, because I don't want people to feel obligated to just help me even when I don't need it. Because then it's like, well, you're wasting your time helping me for something I don't need help with. And it's like that's honestly something that I realize I should have like gotten across like many years ago, because that was actually another trouble I had in high school. And I would get defensive when I would say I don't need the help, even if even if people try to convince me that I do. And there's also like this thing I have where when people just start when people just start yelling at each other and arguing and I'm like not part of it, and there's all this drama going on, I just try to stay by the sideline because I don't like engaging in conflict. I don't super loud noises stress me out, and that happens when people argue, they start yelling at each other. So I you I usually try to like just stay out of conflict entirely if I can avoid it. That's why I sometimes avoid talking about serious stuff, 'cause I'm just afraid of the reaction I'm gonna get.
Thank you so much, Rob and Carolyn and Alec and Shelley. We're going to wrap up now. Is there any final word that you want the world to make sure that they think about when they think about autism or when they meet somebody who's autistic?
I definitely have some things. I just we're human, like when you think about like me being autistic, I do not want you to like only think about me as autistic, because even though that is a really big part of me and it affects my daily life, I do not want that to like hinder, I guess, your thoughts of me. I also really wish that like certain places were more like sensory friendly. I just kind of like want there to be a little more grace, a little more like for not forgiveness, I guess, but just kind of being like, you react like this and I react like this, and we can get through this together, rather than us being ostracized or like thrown into different stereotypes of something that we're not.
Thank you. I feel like you are giving us, the whole human race, a really good opportunity, Carolyn, to be patient, be open, not try to shut the door if something seems like someone's quote unquote rude or not engaging with us in the way we expected, and just ask questions, hang in there. But also, I love the advice that you've given us about autistic people. Autism's one piece of the entire being that they are. And so we want to get to know people for who they are as people. Rob, any
Yes.
final words?
Yes, I would like to say to actually anybody out there, like, don't be ashamed of stuff you're interested in. Obviously, I still have the same interests from when I was like 10. And even though people like have told me, "Oh, I grew out of that a while ago," like I still really like it, and it allows me to just decompress and just get myself away from a stressful situation. Like me playing video games is like Carolyn with art. It's my stress reliever. And I just feel like no one should have to be ashamed that they're interested in stuff that other people might find ridiculous, because everybody's different.
Nothing is too childish. Nothing.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Shelley and then Alec for the final words. Shelley, anything from you?
I just want to say that when we open our hearts and minds to include everybody, even those who are different, all of those who are different, everyone, we can all of us benefit from that, right? No one wins when we exclude or ostracize any group of people. And that's inclusion is really the way forward. Everybody belongs. We belong.
Thank you. Big, powerful thoughts.
My final thought's not going to be as eloquent as that, but I'll just say, when you're out there interacting with people in the world, people could be having a hard day, people could be having a meltdown, for all kinds of reasons, parents with kids or teenagers or whatever. So, be kind to one another. And if you're having trouble communicating with someone, maybe slow down and figure out what actually the problem is.
Ooh, that's
Thank
good.
you so much. Thank you. I'm going to close by thanking each of you so enormously for the time, the thoughtfulness, the depth of what you've shared. And then to let the audience know that there's going to be a webinar by Dr. Brad Schlager. He's the president and CEO of Kennedy Krieger Institute in April. That's going to focus on autism also. And it will feature 3 of the experts from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders at Kennedy Krieger. And I think you're going to be really interested. It will be at wypr.org. And it's called Your Child's Brain Series at Kennedy Krieger. So you can find it at Your Child's Brain Series at kennedykrieger.org/YCB. And also on the ypr.org website or wherever you listen to podcasts. So thank you all, the audience, for staying tuned with us today. And I appreciate the Stanley family enormously. Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
So we hope you liked that.
We thank you guys for listening.
Is that your stomach?
Yeah.
Okay. Go
She
ahead.
fed me cheesecake.
I did. I fed her cheesecake. It was good.
Um,
I didn't make it.
no.
But yeah, so we're having a live tomorrow if you're watching this in real time or listening, where we're gonna do a Q&A and talk about what we're gonna do for season 2.
We want some input.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also we're just gonna get ready to go now because we're tired. So
we hope you have a healthy hypermobility day because Lord, we are struggling. We hope you do better.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
That's for you, Tiffany. And anybody who's wondering, I got it from The Good Place. Maya Rudolph as a judge. Bye.
Bye.